Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bold Take Scouting Podcast. Today, we'll be breaking down my latest mock draft, pick by pick. But first, I know there's a big piece of news that broke today that you can share to us, Alex, and we can just give our initial thoughts before we get into this mock draft breakdown.
Yeah, so I'm sure everybody knows J.J. Watt signed with the Cardinals. I think it caught a lot of people by surprise. It kind of came out of left field. Everybody was saying the Bills, the Packers, maybe the Steelers, it was a surprise to me. And then I saw the contract, and I thought, I don't think anyone offered him anywhere near what he was getting. It was 2 years, $31 million, I think.
Yes.
Well, I think he's still going to have gas in the tank after 2 years. I think it was money that he couldn't pass down.
Yeah, I agree, and there were better choices in terms of pursuing a ring, but this is not a team that you're just looking at them and you're like, oh, there's no chance they win a title in the next 2 years. Kyler Murray could really take a big step forward, and I think it's just going to be predicated on Cliff Kingsbury's ability to guide that team in the right direction because, the talent is there on both the offensive and the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, totally. So, I think with that said, I just want to, bring up that, give our opinions on that. But we'll hop right into your mock draft. If you haven't seen it, it's on our Instagram page, Bold Take Scouting. And we'll start off, the first pick, Jacksonville Jaguars. No surprise with this one.
Trevor Lawrence, it's in the books. We can move on.
Yeah, all right. Number 2, I know we've said this before. 2 is really where the draft starts with the New York Jets.
Yeah, I'm starting to get more and more confident on this one. My pick is Zach Wilson. It has been for maybe a month, and I really think that he's emerging as the QB2 around the league, and that I think that he's a good fit in that offense that's being brought over from the West Coast style offense. And I think that it's a coin toss, honestly, between in terms of where I would rank them in terms of between Wilson and Fields for QB2. But I think that the general idea around the league is that Wilson is maybe the cleaner prospect right now, and it sounds like he has a better shot of going second overall. And I think once they really delve into these prospects and look at Darnold's tape from the last couple of seasons, they'll see that they got to move on from Darnold and pick one of these two, because for me, the gap in talent and ability is just enormous.
Yeah, I agree. I know, rumors have come out that the Jets won't make their decision until they fully look at Darnold, look at the Watson situation, and look at all 4 quarterbacks. I think they have to do their due diligence. But I think at the end of the day, they're going to move on from Darnold and definitely go with one of the top 2. But I agree. I think Wilson is definitely seeming to become more clear right now. All right, so number 3, the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah, so I have the Miami Dolphins selecting Jamar Chase, the wide receiver from LSU. This is really an interesting situation because it's March 1st. It's not like the draft is a couple weeks away, but we're kind of getting there, and there really hasn't been any clear-cut reports saying, oh, the Dolphins are infatuated with this guy or they're targeting this guy at number 3 overall. It's really mainly guesswork on who we believe they might prefer. I think that Jamar Chase is the wide receiver 1 more so than Devontae Smith when you look around the league, in which case I've slotted him in this mock draft. I would not be surprised if it was Devontae Smith. It could even be Penei Sewell. It's just I'm intrigued to see when some actual rumors saying that, look, the Dolphins want this specific player at number 3 start floating around. And for now, I have Jamar Chase in there in a light pencil because it's going to be interesting to see how that evolves in the next few weeks.
Yeah, I know. Respected insider Tony Pauling. I think it was last week or the week before, he was asking a mailbag, would the Dolphins take Sewell if he was there at 2? And he had a one-line response. He said, not if Jamar Chase is there.
But his coworker at Pro Football Network also said before then, a couple of weeks beforehand, that you can put Devontae Smith to the Dolphins in pencil. And I think those are really the only 2 reports that have so clearly said something like that. So I think nobody really knows right now.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see. the rumors that start coming out surrounding that third overall pick. All right, next, another interesting pick for some people, the Atlanta Falcons at number 4.
Yeah, I have them selecting Justin Fields, the quarterback from Ohio State. This is really similar to the Dolphins, in which it's such a high pick, such a high profile pick, and there really hasn't been any there for this one. I have not seen a single report of, look, the Falcons want to pick this guy at 4th overall. I just think that it's a new regime. They're going to assess that roster. They're going to find that it's not good enough to win in the closing window that is Matt Ryan's career. And it's not like he's ever going to regain his, I think it was 2017 MVP season form again. And I think they're better served taking one of these 2 quarterback prospects, Wilson or Fields, if they're available, because the Falcons are not a bad franchise at all. They're not going to be going picking this high again. And I think that they can't pass this up. And it seems to be the general thinking across the league. We'll have to see. And the other thing is, if they don't want to go quarterback, I see them trading down with a team that does. I don't see this being a pick that's not a quarterback at 4th overall if one of the 2 is available.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's really cloudy right now at number 4. And, moving on to a team that definitely does not need a quarterback, the Cincinnati Bengals at number 5. Who do you have going there?
Yeah, I have the Cincinnati Bengals selecting Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle from Oregon. And I mean, as I said last time, it's a dream pick for them. It really is. He just falls in their lap, and I think it might happen come draft day because of that run on quarterbacks. I mean, I wouldn't really call it a run because it's happening so early in the draft, and it's a foregone conclusion that these are some really top level prospects. But if he's there at 5th overall, that they just can't pass him up.
Yeah, I agree. They'll definitely run that card right up to the table or whatever they're doing this year with COVID still a thing. Now, one of probably the most interesting picks of the mock draft so far, the Philadelphia Eagles at number 6.
Yeah, I have the Eagles selecting Trey Lance, the quarterback from North Dakota State. And I mean, when I think about how Howie Roseman went really against the belief of the coaching staff and picked Jalen Hurts in the 2nd round last year, I just think about how Trey Lance has the traits that Hurts has, but just at a much better level and with a much higher ceiling. He's just a much better Jalen Hurts. He's a tough, athletic runner. He's a good passer. He obviously has some room for improvement, but he's not as raw as a passer as Jalen Hurts. And for me, I don't, if Howie Roseman liked Hurts so much, he's going to love Lance. And from what I've heard, I know Albert Breer, a really reliable reporter for Sports Illustrated, has said that they will consider a quarterback at 6th overall. And I think people are too quick to think that, it's Wilson or Fields, or they're not going quarterback. No, I really think if those 2 are gone and they couldn't trade up, or they chose not to, and Trey Lance is there, man, I could see them going Trey Lance, because the situation with having Lance and Hurts is that if you can play Hurts the first year, let him continue to develop. If he's good, okay, this is great. You have two really highly sought after quarterback prospects. You can pick between the 2 and trade one for a high pick. If he's not, you have Lance behind him, and he sat behind Hurts, who's played in an offense that Lance would run to perfection after that development, and he can hop right in. So, we know the Eagles want to be this sort of quarterback factory. And so I think that this is a pick that would make sense for me.
Yeah, I totally agree. I know you mentioned Albert Breer. I know Tony Pauline has said the same thing. The Eagles will consider a quarterback. And I know Matt Miller also said the same thing. So there's definitely some well thought of insiders that are talking about the possibility of a quarterback going to the Eagles. So number 7, the Detroit Lions. Who do you have going here?
Yeah, I have the Detroit Lions picking Devontae Smith, a wide receiver from Alabama, Heisman winner. I think that the situation with Kenny Golladay seems a little muddy. They might tag him, but they might tag and trade him. They might, after tagging him, he might not sign a long-term deal. And just, I think they could use a guy, because even if they do end up keeping Golladay, Smith is a completely different type of receiver. I think Chase is much more similar to Golladay than Smith is. Smith is really a route merchant with the speed and explosiveness, while Golladay is more of a big body. And Goff really needs someone who he can rely on, like Smith. And it's a pick that would make a lot of sense for Detroit.
Yeah, I think Smith can really do a lot when the ball's in his hands, and I think that would definitely benefit Goff not having to do everything throwing the ball. He could dump the ball off to Smith, and he can do some things. Now, this might be the most controversial pick in our mock draft. We got a lot of hate for it in the Instagram comments. So number 8, the Carolina Panthers, Costa. Who do you have and why?
I have the Carolina Panthers selecting quarterback from Alabama, Mac Jones. And I mean, if you told me that I was going to be making this pick in my mock draft even like 2 weeks ago, I would call you crazy. But there have been so many connections between these two in the past month or two. And first off, it's clear that their first intention is really to make a run at Deshaun Watson. I think they're going to fall short. I don't think they have the draft ammunition, and I just think Houston is going to stand firm and just not let Watson go. And that's a whole situation on its own. If they can't do that, they might try to trade up, but they're not the only ones who want one of these top quarterbacks. If they're sitting there at 8th overall and the top 3 quarterbacks are gone, or maybe even if Lance is still on the board, I think they may pick Mac Jones. Why? Well, here are all the connections between Mac Jones and the Panthers. You've got the owner, David Tepper, who was at the Senior Bowl. Owners do not go to the Senior Bowl. You've got Matt Rule, the head coach, who was coaching Mac Jones all week at the Senior Bowl. We know they want to move on from Teddy Bridgewater. That's been painfully clear. We know that. And we've had multiple beat reporters who have connected the two. Jordan Rodriguez said that they like Mac Jones a lot. Joe Person said that he's a guy at the Senior Bowl that they were really strongly watching and interested in. And then for me, maybe the biggest piece of reporter information is a former NFL general manager, Mike Tannenbaum, who was down in Mobile for the Senior Bowl and said, just from what he heard and what he observed on the way that Tepper and Rule were handling their proximity to Jones, is that he said in his words, there is no way that if the Panthers are picking at 8th, that the pick is not Mac Jones. And for me, with all those connections, I think it would be a horrible pick. I don't think Mac Jones is a franchise quarterback. I think he has serious physical and athletic limitations and was really elevated by his all-star supporting cast. But look, there's so many connections. I could see it happening. I mean, crazy or not, yeah, Mac Jones to the Panthers at 8.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest kicker was Mike Tannenbaum, and the way he said it, and just he's 100% confident that Mac Jones is the pick at 8. And if you want to go hear it in his own words, check out the Peter King podcast, and you'll hear it. He says Mac Jones will not fall past 8.
He even said, like, jokingly, that he'd bet a year of Starbucks with Peter King on Mac Jones getting picked by the Panthers at 8.
Yeah, so I mean, it's a crazy pick to both of us, but I mean, these mocks are what we think is going to happen, and there's way too many arrows pointing in the direction of Jones going 8th. All right, now I think we can do the Broncos at 9. Not too much to touch on, but who do you have going there?
Yeah, I have the Broncos picking Caleb Farley, the cornerback from Virginia Tech. They need corner help so badly, and especially when you look at who they're covering in that division. Caleb Farley, I think, is the number 1 corner on most NFL boards, just because he has more upside more athletic a potential than Patrick Surtain. So he's the pick, and I just want to say that if I was them, I'd consider doubling down on corner. I really like the cornerbacks that are going to be available at the top of round 2. If they were to grab a guy like Kelvin Joseph after grabbing Caleb Farley, those are 2 really athletic, high upside corners that could do wonders in terms of trying to play defense against the offenses, and especially Kansas City's offense.
Yeah, and just not to go back too far, we got one of our viewers saying Joe Brady can make Mac Jones look like a stud. So, Jerry, I mean, I think Joe Brady might be one of the best people to make Mac Jones successful, but I think there's some better options than Mac Jones for that Panthers offense. All right, now speaking of corner help, number 10, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, so the Dallas Cowboys at 10 is a pick. I think this is my 3rd mock draft, and this is the 3rd time I mocked Patrick Surtain, the cornerback from Alabama, to the Cowboys. We know Jerry Jones likes his big name Alabama players. He picked Trayvon Diggs last year at cornerback, and he's going to pair him up with his old teammate Patrick Surtain, who's really just a high floor prospect. He's going to be a reliable guy in the secondary for years to come. So just you can't really miss with this pick, and that's what I have.
Yeah, so I just want to provide a little bit of pushback on the last two picks. In my last mock draft from 2 weeks ago, I have them flipped. I've seen some reports that Surtain is the top cornerback on team sports. So I think it will be interesting to see as we get later in the draft, how things shake out. But there's definitely some conflicting reports out there. And hopefully it gets a little clearer as we move on. Now, moving on to the Giants at number 11, who do you have going there?
I have the Giants picking Kyle Pitts, the tight end from Florida. Man, I know Mel Kiper said that the Giants is the absolute floor for Kyle Pitts. If he's there, they will take him, and I believe him. I mean, they have Evan Ingram, but Evan Ingram doesn't stop you from picking Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts is a guy who, if they can use him right and just let him stretch the seam at his will, he's going to make some linebackers, safeties, corners, whoever you put on him, he's going to make them look silly. And I think he has a serious shot of going higher. Is just the way this mock draft turned out, and with the inclusion of 5 quarterbacks in the top 8, he ended up sliding, and the Giants ended up getting really lucky and grabbing him at number 11.
Yeah, I think if Pitts does fall to 11, I think it'd be a steal. I think, he's far and away a top 10 talent for me, or a top 10 talent in the draft. And I just think, like you said, the quarterbacks push guys down. That always happens when there's a run on a position. It's definitely great to be picking after a run because you're going to have great players fall to you. All right, number 12, the San Francisco 49ers. Who do you have going there?
Yeah, I mean, first off, I want to say the New York Giants, you could say it's great for them to be picking after this quarterback run, but boy, could they use one of these, because I'm not sold on Daniel Jones' future. But the San Francisco 49ers, I'd have them picking Kwity Paye, the defensive end from Michigan. I really like Paye. I think that he's got a great compact build, a lot of explosion and bend around the edge, and he really put together some refinement to his game in 2020 that we hadn't seen yet beforehand from him. And I mean, the 49ers do not hesitate to reinforce that defensive line. We know that. I mean, over the years, they picked Eric Armstead, they picked DeForest Buckner, Nick Bosa, and I know some of those picks were not made by this current general manager, John Lynch, but they also picked Javon Kinlaw last year. And I think that if you look at their team, they've got several free agents. I know they've got Kerry Hyder as a free agent, Solomon Thomas, D Ford. And Eric Armstead does possess that ability to slide inside. So I think that Kwity Paye could just get plugged in right there on opposite Nick Bosa. And man, that would be scary. I think you're losing Robert Saleh, which is a big loss. But if you have that talent in the front 7 with Fred Warner playing behind them, it can't go wrong.
Yeah, this is a pick that I really like. I made this pick a few weeks ago, and it really made a lot of sense to me. To a lot of people, looking at it, it doesn't really make sense. The 49ers, they drafted defensive line so many times. But some of those guys are going to leave, Like you said, they have a bunch of free agents. Eric Armstead can get kicked inside. And they run a 4-man front anyways. So I think, Javon Kinlaw you can expect to be starting on the defensive line. Solomon Thomas you can kick inside. And then drafting Kwity Paye gives you the ability to let all those free agents walk. And I think when they made that Super Bowl run, the strength of that team was the defensive line. And I think it's gotten a little bit worse with, trades and people going to leave.
Injuries too, though.
Injuries too, correct. But I mean, I think Paye's a better player than, everyone except maybe D Ford. But I think Kwity Paye will cost you a lot less.
Nick Bosa. Nick Bosa.
I meant the free agents that are
of the free agents. Yes.
Obviously, Nick Bosa is far and away the best player on that defense. One of the best pass rushers in the league.
Yeah.
Without further ado, I think we'll move on to the Los Angeles Chargers, number 13.
Yeah. So I have them picking Jalen Waddle, the wide receiver from Alabama. I got to this pick, and I was going to give them an offensive lineman like I have the past 2 times with several of them available. And I thought, I mean, this is a good offensive lineman class in free agency. If they can address that in the upcoming weeks in free agency, then they can let themselves pick Jalen Waddle and give Justin Herbert a really fun toy. And I mean, this is probably the landing spot I want to see Jalen Waddle in, because with Justin Herbert's explosive arm, playing next to Keenan Allen, who would really command a lot of attention, and he's more of that slot receiver, route running merchant, and you'd have Jalen Waddle on the outside using his explosiveness to stretch the field. I mean, I think that this is a really interesting pick, and I like the fit.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a really, really good fit. I think it all depends on, like you said, what happens in free agency. I think that's an important thing to note. I'm glad you brought it up, that these drafts are still happening before free agency. Free agency starts, I want to say, 2 weeks from today, or the legal tampering period starts in like 11 days or something. So that's when we'll start hearing the big name signings, and it will make it a little bit easier to predict our mock drafts. Moving on to number 14, the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah, I have the Minnesota Vikings selecting Gregory Rousseau, the defensive end from Miami. He has a lot of development ahead of him. He sat out a year. He only had one. He was a redshirt freshman, and he racked up the sacks. But I mean, he was using his athletic traits a lot, and I think that he's got a ways to go in terms of refining his game. But the upside is there, and they've hit once already by picking a kind of a raw athletic edge defender with Danielle Hunter, and right now there's really nobody else to rush the passer in Minnesota. I think if they combine those two together, that would be something intriguing for their front office.
Yeah, I agree. And, they love their defensive players up there in Minnesota. Moving on to the Patriots at number 15, Patriots can always go a lot of different ways with their draft picks. Who do you have going to the Patriots?
I have the Patriots selecting Rashod Slater, the offensive tackle from Northwestern. I've had him higher in previous mock drafts. He just kind of ended up sliding here, and I think that this is a guy that Bill would love. I mean, Bill is not scared of taking a guy. I mean, we saw with Isaiah Wynn, where Isaiah Wynn was a consensus guard because of his lack of height, and Bill put him at left tackle, and he's had a lot of injuries. But when he is healthy, he's a good left tackle, and Rashod Slater is a more talented player than Isaiah Wynn, and he has less of those limitations. So I think he's a guy that would be playing left tackle for the Patriots. He could slide in at guard if needed, and he seems like the Bill Belichick type of player.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this would be a really good pick for the Patriots. Slater's the second offensive tackle on my board. All right, moving to the halfway point now. Arizona Cardinals at 16. Who do you have going here?
I have the Cardinals selecting Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. I mean, he has the talent of a top 10 pick, but we've heard a whole barrage of off-field issues with Parsons, hazing teammates, a lot of immaturity, and just so many really bad reports from him, and reports that do say that he is sliding down draft boards, and that a lot of teams have taken him entirely off their draft boards. If you're wondering what teams, I know the Raiders are one, the Broncos are one, the Jaguars two, the Patriots. According to Benjamin Albright from Pro Football Network. I do think the Cardinals this is my gut speaking and saying, look, the Cardinals really like those linebackers that have that pass rushing potential. They have it with Isaiah Simmons. Hassan Reddick's a free agent, but that was the intention with that draft pick, and he did have a breakout season in pretty late, but last year he really did. And I think that Micah Parsons could be next in line, and they're also not afraid to take some of those character concerns. I know they took Robert Nkemdiche. I don't think I pronounced that right, but a couple of years ago at the back end of the first round. And I mean, Micah Parsons is way more talented, so I think they might really see that risk reward ratio and think that this is worth it. Because I mean, I'm just thinking about it, like, Alex, if you have Micah Parsons and Isaiah Simmons together, man, you have so much potential. And as a defensive coordinator, that's just such a fun combo to work with.
Yeah, I agree. I think linebackers are becoming more important. They were really important, obviously, and I think people started really focusing on the defensive line and the defensive backs. And now I think with just the way that the NFL's going, I think linebackers are becoming more and more important. And I think like you said, having Simmons and Parsons paired together, I mean, that would be a dangerous duo leading your defense. All right, moving on to the Raiders at 17. Who do you have going here?
I have the Raiders picking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, a linebacker safety hybrid from Notre Dame. He just seems like next in line of those Mike Mayock picks, just high character, really reliable players, that versatile, coming from a big school. I think I just see a fit there.
Yeah, I feel like this has kind of been a pick that everybody's
Yeah.
really mocked, and there hasn't been any any reports. It's just like everybody kind of seems to know what Mike Mayock wants. I know it happened with Josh Jacobs. So it's interesting. I think it'd be a good fit for the Raiders. They definitely need a linebacker, especially a linebacker that can cover. And I think a really interesting watch would be Brett Coleman's video. He just put out a video today, which is Monday, about JOK, and it was a really insightful. And it was just I'd recommend go watching that. So yeah, I think we'll move on now. The last team that didn't make the playoffs, well, the Miami Dolphins at 18.
Yeah, I have the Dolphins selecting Najee Harris, the running back from Alabama. I know both of us are in love with Harris. He's such a talented running back. I expect him to be a top 5 running back really early in his career because he's just an incredible power and really surprising athleticism for his massive 6'2" size too. And I mean, there has been reports of just directly linking the Dolphins to Najee Harris and saying they really like him. I mean, if you're going in on Tua as the future of your franchise and passing on Justin Fields or Zach Wilson at 3rd overall, you better be giving him a combo of weapons or members of his supporting cast like they are in this mock draft with Jamar Chase and Najee Harris.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen plenty of reports too about the Dolphins really liking Harris. We have one of our Raider fans happy about that JOK pick, and if I was a Raiders fan and they end up picking JOK, I'd be happy with that too. I really think he's a really good player as long as the defensive coordinator knows how to use him. All right, so moving on to number 19, the Washington football team.
Yeah, so I have the Washington football team picking one of my favorite players in this draft class, Rashod Bateman, the wide receiver from Minnesota. I love Bateman, and his name gets left out of that conversation of the top wide receivers too often. I mean, the man he's big, really physical. He's a great route runner too, and I mean, he doesn't win with speed and athleticism, but he doesn't lack it either, like some people try to say. The Exos Combine that some players are using as an alternative due to the actual combine being canceled this year had him laser measured at his 40 time of 4.39, and that is blazing. And I mean, I believe it. He doesn't show quite that speed on tape, but he doesn't lack speed. And for me, he's going to be a maybe even a Pro Bowl receiver. I really like Rashod Bateman. I think that the Washington football team could really use him if they pair him with Terry McLaurin. That's really good for that wide receiver core.
Yeah, I think Bateman's really a name that slipped. He played a few games, but then he opted out, and I think he's a guy that kind of fell out of first round consideration for most people. But I think that 4.39 40 might help bump his name back up into the first. But I think both of us believe that he deserves to be in the first round conversation. All right, moving on to number 20, the Chicago Bears.
I have the Chicago Bears selecting Elijah Vera-Tucker, the offensive lineman, because he can be a tackle or a guard from USC. I love Vera-Tucker. I think this would be a great pick because he can be a really good left tackle. He was he was the left guard last year with Austin Jackson at left tackle, who got picked in the first round by the Dolphins, and then he slid out to left tackle and he performed admirably. I think he can play either at a very high level in the NFL. He just ends up sliding to number 20 for the Bears, and I mean they need to shore up that offensive line, and boom, that's a great pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think he played better than Austin Jackson did.
Oh, 100%.
So I think it's interesting about this offensive line class. I know Slater's been pegged from all insiders that he's the number one guy and everybody's bored, but other than that, it's been really cloudy. I mean, people have said that Vera-Tucker is most consistently named number 2, but some people have him down at 4. So it's just really interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how different teams value different offensive linemen as we move into the draft. Moving on to number 21, the Indianapolis Colts.
Yeah, so I have the Indianapolis Colts selecting Christiandarasaw, the offensive tackle from Virginia Tech. I think it's really a similar scenario with Elijah Vera Tucker, where you just happen to slide to this point, and it's a no-brainer pick. I know they're losing Anthony Costanzo to retirement at left tackle. Darisaw can slide in right there and perform at that position. For me, these top four tackles, I mean, Penei Sewell is in a class of his own. That's clear. But then Rashawn Slater, Elijah Vera Tucker, and Christiandarasaw, I really like that trio. I think if you're getting them anywhere after the top 10 picks, you're getting really good value for your pick, because they're going to be high level offensive linemen, and that's priceless in the NFL. There are so many teams that need that kind of help. So for me, I think it would be a mistake for the league to let these two drop to 20 and 21. But I mean, who knows? It may happen. There's some offensive weapons that are going to look to go in the teens. So it could happen. But at both these picks with the Bears and the Colts will be no brainers.
Yeah, now moving on to the Tennessee Titans at number 22. Flipping to the other side of the ball, who do you have the Titans picking?
I have the Titans picking Jalen Phillips, the defensive end from Miami. I know a couple months ago, after he just for some context, if nobody really knows his story, he was the number 1 overall recruit in his class coming out of high school, committed to UCLA. Due to injuries and just maybe a lack of performance, he kind of just didn't pan out there and transferred to Miami. And then after Gregory Rousseau opted out, playing opposite of Quincy Roche, he just had a great season, and he has the size, he has the athleticism, the length, the bend, and he showed a good level of refinement. And I was expecting his stock to really skyrocket. I thought that teams would look like, oh, this is a guy we really thought was going to be a big time college player. It took a couple of years, but he really put it together. I thought he was going to be considered maybe even in the top 10, and it just doesn't seem like his name has gotten that buzz. And I think it maybe should have. Like, I wouldn't pick him quite that high, because there are the injury issues in the past and just the one season of elite production and performance. But I think at 22, this would be a great pick, especially for the Titans, who really need to generate more pass rush than they did last year.
Yeah, just to touch on the story a little bit more, like you said, he had quite a few injuries at UCLA. I know concussions were an issue. And that's definitely something that, you want to get checked out as a team before you pick them at all. So there were concussions, and then he got in, I can't remember if it was a car accident or if it was a motorcycle accident. I'm pretty sure it was a motorcycle accident. And then that just made him want to step away from the game. He took, I think it was a year off, and then he transferred to Miami. And that's, he had his, like you said, his breakout season this year.
Yeah.
Now to the New York Jets at 23, their second pick in the draft. Who do you have going there?
I have the Jets picking Greg Newsom, the cornerback from Northwestern. This is a guy that I love, and I think is really underrated. He's really quick, fluid, agile, athletic, very intelligent, just a really, really reliable man coverage guy, and that's really important to have one on your team. I think the Jets could really use him in that back end. And I've heard from multiple people. I know Dane Brugler is one of them. I think Daniel Jeremiah too, from NFL Network, who have said that, look, teams do know how talented he is. So it was nice to see that I wasn't the only one, and they're saying that he's getting a lot of round 1 buzz. So I think that for a team in this range, he could really be a great pick.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think, Newsom really fills a big need for the Jets. They've been looking for that cornerback since Darrelle Revis, left and then came back and retired. And, I think that's a position they've been looking for a long time. And I think he would really step in and fill that position for them. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 24.
Yeah, so, I mean, it seems like the thought for those Steelers is that they're going to be going offensive tackle ahead of maybe some other positions they might target, like running back. Daniel Jeremiah has said that they would be leaning offensive tackle. So I'm sending Alex Leatherwood, the offensive tackle from Alabama, to the Pittsburgh Steelers at 24th overall. And as you said, the offensive tackle boards are all going to be looking so different. I think that there probably is that general top 4 that we've already touched on with Sewell. And then in some order, that's going to vary a lot. Slater, Vera Tucker, and Darisaw. And then after that, this next tier is also going to have a crazy amount of variance. Like, no two teams are going to have them ordered in the same way. I'm putting Leatherwood here, but this very well could be Samuel Cosmi or Tevin Jenkins or Liam Eichenberg, even Jackson Carman. There's so many guys who could be going right here but I think I'm just off the top of my head, gut feeling, I'm sending them Alex Leatherwood. I do think they're going to be looking to get an offensive tackle here, though.
Yeah, totally. I think another name you could watch going to 24 to the Steelers would be Najee Harris if he does fall.
Yes.
I know you had a lot of interest in him, but obviously you have him going 18 to the Dolphins. All right, so moving on to the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 25, their second pick as well. Who do you have going here?
I have the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting Trayvon Morig, the safety from TCU. He seems to be pretty much the consensus safety one around the league. And I know Urban Meyer really emphasizes speed. That's one thing he's really big on. And Morig has a lot of speed. He has a lot of speed, athleticism, fluidity, just all you're looking for in terms of that athletic profile that he possesses. I think this will be too early though, because I looking at him as a guy who's going to be playing maybe single high in the back end. He's just not a good enough tackler. I need that guy who's the last line of defense to be able to be relied on to take down a guy in the open field and prevent a chunk play from turning into a huge play. And I just don't see that on tape yet. And so those tackling inconsistencies just concern me too much right now, but I could see this pick happening.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he is my number one safety right now, but he's not ranked highly. He's not close to a first round grade. Right now, about a 2.6 on him. You can check out my scouting report on our Instagram page. We'll move right along to the Cleveland Browns at number 26.
Yeah, I have them picking a guy that I know both of us really like, Zaven Collins, the linebacker from Tulsa. He's just he has the body of your like old school, really big linebacker, but he's got incredible movement skills for that size. I think he can look to improve his ability to make the right reads and make them quickly. But I think that'll come, and he's got really high upside because of just that incredible combination of athleticism and size and power that he possesses. And so I think the Browns could use that second level help, and it would just be a really good pick.
Yeah, the Browns are really a team that you look at that don't have too many needs. And in all honesty, they've been really well constructed over the last few years. I think linebacker is probably the biggest need. And I know this is a mock draft show, but I'm a huge fan of this linebacker class. I think there's a lot of players that are a little bit underrated maybe. I think there's just a lot of guys that I can see being, impact starters. And I think it's got guys at the top, Micah Parsons, JOK, and then I think, late first, early second. I think there's some really intriguing guys. I know we'll touch on that later down the line, but
well, just give one or two of those names right now. I'm curious. I'm sure listeners are.
I think his upside is just insane. I mean, he committed to UNC as a quarterback, and then he moved to linebacker, and just playing college linebacker for not even 2 full years. And just the football IQ that he possesses after playing quarterback, just all the little nuances of the game of playing linebacker are things that he has to, develop and learn. But I don't see any reason as to why he won't learn all those things. So I think he's a guy that I see, early mid-second round grade on. I think he's got a huge, huge upside.
I agree. Totally agree.
All right. We got a little bit off track. We'll keep it moving. Down to the last few picks. Baltimore Ravens at 27. Who do you have going here?
I have the Ravens picking Azeez Ogilari, the outside linebacker, defensive end, edge rusher from Georgia. I think they're probably going to lose Matt Judon in free agency, and they're always looking to have a good stable of pass rushers. And I think Ogilari could be next in line. I have him graded right in this range where he's going to go. I really like his burst and motor at the edge rusher position, so it would be a solid pick.
All right, next up, the New Orleans Saints at number 28, and some interesting stuff going on with Breeze not announcing his retirement yet. Who do you have going here to the Saints?
Yeah, regardless of who's the quarterback, they could really use a field-stretching wide receiver to pair with Michael Thomas, and hopefully he gets back on track and finds his level that he had prior to the 2020 season. So I have the Saints picking Cadarius Toney, the wide receiver from Florida. There are some off-field concerns that need to be vetted and you need to be comfortable with. If anyone's wondering, I know a couple of years back he was involved in an incident on the Florida campus where him and his teammates were having almost a brawl in public, and he pulled out a gun and pointed it at a couple of people. I think it might have been. I'm really not sure about the exact details of the gun. That's not my area of expertise, obviously. So back to the football aspect. Cadarius Toney is a guy who's really got so much elusiveness and wiggle. So he's a great run after the catch threat. And if you can develop into a really complete wide receiver and use the athletic profile to get some really good route running skills, then it could be a good pick. I think it's probably a high ceiling, low floor pick for me, but it definitely would be interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, the character issues, got to be comfortable with those and check them all out before you draft Toney. But definitely, like you said, huge upside. Moving on to the Packers at 29.
Yeah, I have the Packers selecting Christian Barmore, the defensive tackle from Alabama. I think they could use an interior defensive lineman, and Barmore is a guy who's really flashed. We saw it in the college football playoff with those 2 games. He was just a menace and getting past some quality offensive linemen who are going to be going early in this draft, especially against Ohio State. But the thing with him is some games it's almost like he's not there, like he didn't show up. So that game to game inconsistency is concerning. But he's got the tools and he's got the upside. So if you're willing to bank on that, then it's a really intriguing selection there.
Yeah, like you brought up, his extreme inconsistencies, and that I'm not a huge fan of him because of that. I want a guy, especially him going in the first round. I want a guy that I know is going to show up every single week. And I think Daniel Jeremiah put it perfectly. He said that Barmore is a guy that sometimes flashes top 15 talent, and then some games he's a late day 3 pick talent. So, it really comes down to how do you get that top 15 talent every single week? And if you know how to tap into that, I think you're getting a really good player. Moving on to the last 3 now, Buffalo Bills at number 30.
I have the Bills selecting Jason Owa, the defensive end from Penn State. Man, if we had a combine, this guy would have just blown the roof off the Lucas Oil Stadium in Indy. He's just the athletic potential is incredible. We've all heard the rumors of what he would have ran, what he would have jumped, and it's just insane. And I hope Penn State has a pro day. They probably will, and that's why I'm thinking that he's going to end up in the first round, because as soon as we get some kind of testing numbers on him, teams are just going to their jaws are going to drop, because they may not all be there right now. The refinement, the instincts, they're not first round level, but the athleticism surely is. And I really think in the back half of the first round, to a team that needs some edge rushing help. I know the Bills have Mario Addison, Jerry Hughes, who have had solid careers but are getting up there in age. I could see them going this route, because Owa is just a guy who has freak athleticism.
Yeah, moving on to the Super Bowl losers, Kansas City Chiefs. Who do you think they're going to take here to help get back on top?
Yeah, the Chiefs have really several routes they could take. I have them taking J.C. Horn, the cornerback from South Carolina. He might not drop this far, but if he does, I could see the Chiefs going with him, because he seems to have a lot of fans around the scouting community. I know neither of us are really that high on him. We think his physicality really is a lot of grabbiness, and that once that gets coached out of him because of all the flags he's going to draw early in his career, he might not have those pure athletic traits to mirror and stay in phase. But I think the Chiefs are going to be looking to get a corner, because their secondary is not bad, but they could really use a good perimeter corner. So they might be taking a shot at that position at the back end of the first half or the first round.
Yeah, I think, offensive line is another position that we could see them go here. But like you said before, it's a really good offensive line class in free agency and in the draft. There's really good depth. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go get a guy in free agency or take a cornerback here and then address the offensive line in the second round. But I think definitely cornerback and offensive line are 2 positions that they need to address in some caliber this offseason. The last team of the mock draft, Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Who do you have helping them stay on top?
Yeah, I have them picking Joe Tryon, the defensive end from Washington. He's not a guy who would even be starting for them in 2021. He opted out, and he was really never at anywhere near a finished product, but he has all of the prototypical traits of an edge rusher in terms of the size, the athleticism, the length, the bend. And I think that this is really a luxury pick for them. But seeing who they have at defensive end, Shaq Barrett, who has an uncertainty in terms of the fact that he's a free agent, so who knows what's going to be happening there. Jason Pierre-Paul is getting older. They might look to sit Joe Tryon behind those two for maybe a season, and then really let him learn and craft his game, and then come in afterwards and try to be an impact pass rusher, because he does have all the tools.
Yeah, we brought up the Browns as a really well-built roster. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers as well. Shout out to Jason Light for just acquiring talent everywhere between both, free agency and the draft. He's, hit with so many picks. Devin White, Antoine Winfield, Tristan Wirfs. So the list goes on and on. Chris Godwin. I mean,
yeah,
he built this roster really, really well. And it shows, like you said, it's a luxury pick for them. I don't really see anyone at this point in the draft that they could really take that's going to be a starter for them next year. They're just that well built. And, obviously injuries happen. Sometimes somebody could get traded. Guys might leave in free agency. But looking at the team at this moment, I don't see, anyone in the draft at pick 32 that's going to be a starter for them week 1 next year.
I think they could also definitely look to trade down, because I know those last couple picks in the first round are really valuable, because teams might want to come back in, and for multiple reasons, they might want to get a guy that they really like and spare the trouble of trying to get him amidst the competition of other teams on the second night of the draft, get that over with in the first night. And then there's also that valuable fifth-year option that comes with those first-round picks. So I think Tampa, as you said, that they're really well built, so they definitely could trade down and get a similar level talent in the second round and acquire more picks to really build that team even more, because they can definitely get impact players. And later, I know Tyler Johnson didn't have a ton of production, but you really liked him last year, and he had some big catches down the stretch. And just filling out the roster with guys who can make an impact is definitely the offseason priority for the Bucs, as they try to really push for another ring after this magical season with Tom Brady.
Yeah, I think, like you touched on the ability to trade down from pick 32. I think you mentioned the fifth-year option, but also I think a lot of times getting into – once the draft ends on night 1, all the teams go back, look at their board, and they say, oh, there's always guys that fall out of round 1 that should have gone round 1. And you have maybe 18 hours to look at your board and, realize, oh, these guys fell. We need to move up and get them. So if you could jump the gun on that, and instead of having to try to scramble to trade up at the beginning of round 2, just hop into that 32nd pick and get ahead of all those other teams that are going to realize these really talented guys fell, and, scoop them up at the end of round 1. I think, trading back is I'm going to give it a 50-50 chance right now. There's no reason for them to stay.
Yeah, I agree.
So this was a little bit longer, but I hope we provided you with some insight. It was fun going over Kosta's mock draft. I hope we gave you some little nuggets and some rumors that you can sit with and maybe help make your own mock draft. And hopefully free agencies right around the corner. Hopefully that will help make these mock drafts a little bit clearer, give us a little bit more of a direction that these teams could be going. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.